So, Shilly Boy, in our workshops, on our courses, on our webinars, a very common question when it comes to trust are the tax rates. And talk about you get taxed at 45%, so that's expensive. Maybe give us your opinion on what are the tax benefits of a trust, and we'll start there.
Look, I hear that a lot where people are saying trust is actually expensive. It gets taxed at 45%. Yes, if you don't do a proper tax planning, you will be taxed at 45%, which is a default tax rate for the trust. However, if you do a proper tax planning, you can actually get beautiful and actual efficient tax benefit that comes with a trust. A classical one, which is a common law principle, is what we call conduit pie principle, which allows you to actually move the income through a trust to the beneficiaries of that particular trust, where you find that actually those beneficiaries can actually be taxed more efficiently at the lower rate as compared to the trust. So in most cases, we always say that a trust should always, if you are planning your things efficiently, should always be the last taxpayer to be taxed, which means that you can actually look at various ways to move money around so that the trust at the end of the day is the one to be taxed last, which contract pie principle actually allows you to do that.
Absolutely. And Shilly Boy, another question is when investors are buying and selling, they're flipping properties,
Yes.
is it still beneficial to flip through a trust or should they do it through a company?
You can. It depends on the circumstances. Let me give you a scenario. If, let's say, for instance, the beneficiaries of that chart of the trust are minors, which in this particular, who are minors who are not actually generating any form of income. So you can already know that they will be sitting at probably zero tax rate, right?
Yeah.
So if you flip a property through the trust, can you see that using the conduit pie principle that I just alluded to, you can actually distribute that particular income to the beneficiaries who are minors, who actually can even enjoy tax-free threshold of about 99,000 as it is currently. So which means that if, let's say, for instance, the flipping profit is about 300,000 and you've got beneficiaries who are about maybe 4 of them, you can actually split that 300,000 to them, and then you can see that what they're going to get, each of them, is actually below tax-free threshold. Can you see that is the beneficiaries that are actually even potentially more likely are not going to be taxed as compared to if you just retain that money actually into the trust will be the one that is taxed at 45%. So it's a matter of saying, getting involved with a tax planner to say, how do I move this money around? Which means that you can still flip the property through the trust. You just need to actually do more tax planning after you've done that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So Shilly Boy, why is it important that we go for 2 trusts and not 1 trust?
Look, in most cases, and let's unpack this actually. You will typically, where you're dealing with property investors, you'll find commonly where they use what you call property trust. And then you'll find those who actually also, on top of that, they've got what you call family trust, right? Okay. So now, the true differentiating factor here is the nature of the investment they actually ring-fence within these 2 structures. Yeah. So you'll typically find in a family trust where people actually put more cash reserves there in a case of rainy days where they can actually even bail out that particular property trust. You know, in business, things can go south.
Yes.
So now, this is typical what you'll find. Some people you'll find actually, they put in those Ferraris, those you see that in the likes of scientists, they actually tend to buy those fancy assets actually within the family trust. And then you find some of them actually even put things like holiday homes. You can actually ring-fence them for asset protection point of view. You can actually ring-fence them. So that's what you'll typically find. Others, they'll actually even make the family trust a beneficiary of their life policies and their retirement benefits, all those various type of financial product that you will typically find within the family structures. Now, property trust will be sort of a special purpose vehicle, which in this case is a trust, where it's used or utilized to actually own the shares of various property companies that you will actually be having or forming as you go along and on your property journey, right? Yes. So you'll typically find that property trust is for that. It's ring-fencing those ventures. And you will typically also try to actually separate the two, because in most cases, these trading trusts as property trust it will be exposed. It will be known by your partners. You can see
Yeah.
that from their constitutional right, that confidential right that you as a taxpayer or as an individual, you are actually bestowed to under the constitution, it's actually slowly disappearing because it gets to be exposed. Many lawyers, when you're transferring properties, they figure you until to the end. So your trust will end up actually not being a bit of confidential thing. So you want to actually shift the money now and then to a more confidential structure that you and your family only knows to in order to preserve this wealth. So this is what typically you find why people actually choose also to actually separate their affairs just for confidential, also just to ring-fence certain assets that they think that the family should actually be protecting. Also, what we actually always also encourage is the importance that these family trusts should never actually also stand for surety. So,
Yeah.
which means that is the cornerstone, is really a sacred place for the family
And there's no
well-being.
debt, eh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They should not put debts there because you want to make sure that should anything goes wrong, in other ventures like
Sure.
property trust, but the wealth of the family is actually secured, which means when you secure the family wealth, you actually secure the well-being of the generations to come.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shillyboy.
Thank you so much.
So, Shillyboy, let's say I go out and I set up a trust. Talk to us about the importance of why do I need an independent trustee?
Okay, so if you recall a couple of years back, most people actually set up what you call family business trust, which
Yeah.
is any normal sort of a trust that is actually going to be investing with third parties, right? So before that, the independent trust was not actually requirements, but there was a directive around 2014, which the Master of High Court actually issued to say all the family business trust actually needs to have an independent trust. And this was coming from sort of a historical cases where they found that actually families upon the death of the founders of these trusts tend to fight for this wealth of these
Yeah.
families, and also the trust tend to not to be administered efficiently and according to the legal frameworks like Trust Property Control Act of this world, right? So in order to minimize that, the Master of High Court actually issued that directive to say all the family business trust needs to have an independent trustee. And this is where the likes of us who actually professionally offer that kind of a service of independent trustee. So our role actually as independent trustees is to ensure that the compliance and also of the compliance is actually adhered to by these trustees and the beneficiaries, and the trust is actually also compliant with the relevant regulatory frameworks like Trust Property Control Acts.
Absolutely. And obviously, Shillyboy, there's a fee that you've got to pay for this independent trustee. What's all included in that fee?
Look, like I said, the role you're actually paying for the services, the professional service of these particular independent trustees. So they will be assisting with actually drafting the resolutions of any form of transactions that happens within the trust, and ensuring that also the trust complies with SARS regulations, tax returns are also submitted, ensuring that the assets and register as required by Trust Property Control Act is actually also prepared by so-called appointed accountant of that particular trust. So you will typically actually be paying those independent trustees to assist you in making sure that the administration of the trust is actually done according to the law.
100%. And then, Shillyboy, in the event that I go set up a trust at a company, but I haven't done